Welcome to Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My name is Jessie Ott, the host of this podcast, which is all about beverage innovation. I talk with innovation pioneers from agriculture to glass.
Thank you for listening, and be sure to subscribe to be notified of all new episodes.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thursdays. I am Jessie, and I have a special panel this year. And I can't wait to introduce you all, or have you actually introduce yourselves to all of us. And I don't believe we know each other as a group until now. And so that's pretty exciting to get different people from different parts of the industry together to talk about, an industry we're passionate about and love, and see it transition beyond, I think, what I ever thought we would be. Just to be honest, there's some surprises for me for 2024. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Julie. Julie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Julie Milroy. I am a global wine and spirits U.S. distribution strategist, formerly with Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits. I was an executive there for 15 years. And now I am in transition, but also working on my consultant agency, JM Advisory.
Okay, Caitlyn?
So, Caitlyn LuBell, I'm in New York. One of the founders of Booze Biz, which is a recruiting agency for the booze industry. So we focus throughout the U.S., all types of roles, and we're kind of the matchmaker for candidates, jobs, great clients filling great roles, and our whole team is all from the industry. So we all have industry backgrounds. So,
well, good morning, everyone. Kate Jerkens. I'm the Chief Business Officer for Nearest Premium Whiskey, and I just celebrated my 8-year anniversary. I actually was the first employee to come on with Fawn, our founder. This was actually my first foray into the spirits world, and boy, did I choose the time.
yeah,
Really.
Oh, man.
Everyone.
Definitely. Yeah, I can't wait, Kate. I can't wait to hear more. Erica.
Yeah, Erica Duecy. And I have to say, Kate, we just had Fawn Weaver, as everyone knows, from Uncle Nearest on the Business of Drinks podcast, which I run. And so far, it's one of our most listened to episodes of all time because this company is just making waves.
Amazing.
So a little bit about me. I've been leading teams in content, data, tech, both drink side and non for about the last So I've held director level roles at big publishing brands like Architectural Digest and Fedora magazine, and then editor and chief content officer roles for drinks publications and platforms on both the trade and consumer side. So 750 Daily, Pix, Vine, Pair. And in the past few years, I've been working as a strategic consultant, building both marketing and data and insights programs for companies like Drizzly, Union. I do a lot of market research. So for example, I'm just finishing up a big study that I did for the New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, where we're looking at different generational cohorts and how to market to each of those generations. And I share a lot of my insights on the Business of Drinks podcast. And that's the format of that podcast is we track trends and we interview the most innovative people in the drink space, which is why Fawn was on, and talk to them about how they've built their brands. Yeah, so I'm excited to be here with everyone today.
yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's get started. I think I have some notes I can always put up on the board, but the idea is just sort of just for the audience is kind of just talk about our industry from, where we started in 2024 and what happened, and then, kind of move into some of the surprises, and then where do we think 2025 is going to be? And so I guess starting out with 2024, I do have some notes I'll share on here and that can spark your thought. All right. Oh, here we go.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we have some obvious things, right? We've got the low and no alcohol growth, CBD and THC beverage growth, the premium high proof spirits, particular bourbon. And I'm seeing that also through my interviews that I've had with people that are companies that are new, that are actually, using wood staves to age whiskey and bourbons. So that's become quite a thing. rise in celebrity brands. I don't know if it's a rise, it's just a continual circle of celebrity brands. Certainly growth in e-commerce, innovation in flavored spirits, growth in private label. I feel like that kind of goes up and down. Oh, well, we're interested. No, we're not interested. And this seemed to be this past year where they were. Obviously, there was a lot of bulk wine that was really cheap. So if you wanted to start a wine brand, this was the year. And then growing demand for sustainability and eco-friendly practices, which I think we're all seeing everywhere, especially the younger generation are certainly kind of pushing for that. And, the flavored, ready to drink, bulk spirits to produce those and whatnot. So, Julie, do you want to start and kind of give us your thoughts on these?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've really captured 2024. I feel like it was, in just my own words, I feel like 2024 was like the start of a major correction. I relate it similar to the post-financial crisis period. And I think that a lot of that was, driven by really stellar economic years in, 2018, 2019. A lot of people had additional funds, and it was just really the peak when you compare it to back in 2007, 2008, right before the financial crisis. People were drinking and buying a lot more and spending a lot more. COVID obviously stalled everything, right? Where we had a complete stop in the business. But, with wine and spirits, and I'm speaking from my world in distribution, is that we had tremendous growth during that time, right? So even though the entire on-premise channel, restaurants and hotels shut down completely, retail, made up for those losses and actually exceeded those losses. What restaurants could continue to order were not being able to take advantage of any kind of pricing discounts or quantity discounts. So they were all buying, at frontline pricing, even plus frontline pricing, with breakage charges. So bottom line was incredible. I mean, our margins were incredible, during COVID. And then you saw a lot of price increases, right? And just to keep up with demand, and probably not going to be popular for saying this, but some price gouging as well. So coming out of COVID, I think 23, 24, I think everybody just thought, oh, we're going to pick right back up where 2019 was and continue our growth from there. And I think 24 was like that hard, it's not happening, right? And I think, all of our suppliers that we love so much were like, no, 2019 is the baseline. It's the baseline. If we could just hit 2019 numbers, we're good, and that's not the reality, right? 2019 was a high year. So even to make 2019 numbers, before COVID hit, is impossible. I mean, when we look specifically at, a wine or a spirit supplier. So I like to describe 2024 as like a reset year, where we have so much going on, right? And innovation opportunities as you went over here, the low non-alc, CBD, THC, celebrity brands. Every celebrity has, their brand. Innovation still continues, but there's a lot more competition, and it's really difficult to get in front of that consumer and be that choice that they go with. So summarizing, I think 2024 is kind of that, okay, things aren't where we thought they were going to be, and it is a year to rethink.
Okay. Yeah, that is definitely an echo of what I've heard from another executive at probably a top 15 supplier about competition. She used the phrase survival of the fittest, right? That's where we're at. And with all the competition that is happening out there, not everybody's going to make it, but there's room for a lot, right? We have room for a lot. And a lot of companies don't need to be in 50 states. It's not their goal, right? So it just depends on, how they stand out and what their goals are and the teams that they hire to put behind those goals. Erica, do you want to kind of talk a little bit about your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, echoing what Julie said, I think a reset is a perfect way to characterize the year. Um, and a little bit of a reckoning in that there was kind of like bombs coming in from all directions. But I think, in particular, probably the biggest thing that I see happening is that there's really a cultural shift happening, right? So, this was the year of the World Health Organization saying that no amount of alcohol is safe. And it's not just that conversation. We also see these huge influencers like Andrew Huberman who have like 20 million followers on their podcasts listening to their podcast saying like, look, if it were our recommendation, we would say just have 1 to 2 drinks a week for health, right? So there's all of this conversation happening around alcohol that didn't used to happen, and there's a lot more choices than there used to be. So one of the there's an interesting slide that I like to share from an organization, like a polling organization, GWI Core. And it's very indicative to me because it showed that, a decade ago, alcoholic drinks, they ranked at number 12 in the topics that younger people ages 16 to 24 were talking about online. So if you look at like online conversations that are happening, alcohol was like ranking up there, with like sports and music and like all these sorts of things for those younger consumers. Now, the same age set 10 years later, it's dropped down to 26. So it just shows that the cultural relevancy of alcohol is changing. And with that, especially for younger consumers, it comes like changing consumption habits. So it's not just the conversation, it's also the consumption habits. And what we see is that there's just a lot more choice out there. There's it's a much more of a flavor-driven world. So the things that I see really over-indexing for younger audiences are things like Stella Rosa, right? That is a flavor-driven wine brand. So we have, I just had on Steve Rebely talking about how they grew that product line to 4.1 million cases last year and continues to have, double-digit growth. And the thing that I think is really interesting about what is over-indexing for younger consumers is that it's very clear flavors. So when you pick up the Stella Rosa, right, you see that it says ruby red grapefruit, or, they're the number one selling new wine SKU of the year last year, according to Nielsen, was their chili, pineapple and chili wine, right? So like those sorts of products, interesting, with like the massive influx of RTDs, like those types of thing where it's very clear of like, this is the flavor of the thing I will be drinking without any confusion. Those are the types of products that are over-indexing for younger consumers. So it's very interesting to me that like some of the more traditional categories don't really market on a flavor first sort of basis. So I think that's a sort of shift that I anticipate happening in the years to come. And I do think that portfolios are going to become more diversified in order to stay competitive, because I think like this flavor forward ordering, which we see, obviously not just in wine and the alcohol space, but across literally every single CPG category, is just going to continue. The way I think about it is like you walk into Starbucks and you look at the menu board and there's a million flavors, or you go to Whole Foods or even a convenience store. And again, those things are just with all the coconut, pineapple, mango, all the flavors, the berries, it's just very clear what you're ordering and picking up off the shelf into what you're drinking. So I think that shift to me became cemented this year in a way it hadn't been before.
Interesting. Yeah, I had never thought about that before. So it's kind of like a new way of being a consumer.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting to see, and I do see some research from like Wine Market Council and other places suggesting that millennials, that when they age into their 40s, they do start to adopt more traditional wine drinking and wine buying habits and spending more per bottle than prior generations. So I think that for traditional categories like wine and spirits, there is hope.
Good to hear.
The entire ship is not going to capsize, but I do think that, especially at the younger level, at the younger ages, we definitely see a shift happening.
Okay.
Yeah, interesting. Kate, over to you.
Yes, I apologize for stepping away for a moment. I have an 8-year-old homesick today, and we were calling for inside to check on it really quickly. That's what working moms do. It's what we do. So I have a teenager, and I found your conversation interesting. We have a very open, transparent relationship, and I agree. The way they talk about parties and alcohol and their priority is very different than even how I grew up. A lot of them don't hear about it as much, but they're also not sitting around cake anymore. They have all those flavored, all the kind of flavors and all that kind of stuff, and that's more appealing to teenagers. I'm not telling her out but in general, I always ask when she goes to a party, was there a cake? What's the cake? Why does it change? But yeah, I think it's very interesting. And a lot of the younger kind of 20-somethings that I know are also just in a more health conscious moment. And then moms and stuff like that, even those of us in our 40s, there's a lot of people that have just started to drink less in general and just making health choices. And this is all women here, but a lot of that, perimenopause and all that kind of stuff, a lot of what you're reading is that alcohol does not serve us as well. So there's a lot of different things going on, but I agree 100% with the reset. And I feel like this is the year where every company wants you in the office again 4 or 5 days a week. And I live in Los Angeles. The traffic is back to normal, right? We went through this, 2020 reset with COVID, and we're all going to work from home, and people started happy hour, sometimes a little too early, you weren't driving anywhere, right? And so it is very much a reset. And, a lot of spirits company distributors were living high in 2020 and into 2021 and beyond, because drinking habits and the so-called pantry loading was all happening. And God forbid you didn't have 6 bottles of something in your house. What if you wanted to have a outdoor gathering and whatever it might be? So it just, we looked at a lot of graphs and looked at where the growth should have been. If you have 2019 and just kind of did normal growth, and we just really are in the middle of a reset, and it's tough. Yeah, the bigger companies I think are hurting the most because they have to report those numbers. And so what I'm seeing out there, truly, I live in Los Angeles, and so in California you can sell booze anywhere. I spent a day in the market a couple of weeks ago, just going anywhere from grocery to just a regular liquor store to the more kind of chain liquor store, and boy, the pricing has gone crazy.
Yeah.
It's gone. People are dropping prices like crazy, but if you look in the Nielsen right now, that is not helping to drive volume. So I think there are some companies right now setting themselves up for some disappointment in the years to come, because they've now dropped pricing margin and they're not getting the volume in return. And I think that's going to be a big challenge, and it's going to be a big challenge to get consumers to start spending that money again when they're used to some of the deals that they're seeing. I mean, it's mind-blowing. And I know not every state will do this type of discounting, but when you're seeing these kind of open markets, it's game on with some of these big companies right now. And in regard to the celebrity piece, I thought that was an interesting, I definitely see the rise of it, but I think it's interesting to also to talk about the success of those.
The success.
But it's not the same. That's not the same, right? You look at, I don't want to call out moves, but you look at some of these the heavily celebrity-backed brands, and some of them have taken a huge dive this year. And the ones you see that are actually succeeding are the ones where you see the celebrity actually out there. So, I will give the brothers Bond. I think that's those guys. Those are the guys from was the show that everybody loved. I'm too old for it though, I think. Anyway, 2 handsome guys, brothers Bond bourbon. Yeah, I saw them out at a Whole Foods in Venice about a year or 2 ago, and they were out there pressing the flesh and signing every bottle. And he's like, this is day 10 of this tour they've been on, where they're out there really working the market. And I've seen some other celebrity brands doing that. I think that's going to make the difference. But just having a celebrity on your brand, if that's not willing to work, it's not helpful at all. And I think we'll see less and less of these deals, because unless you're willing to truly work at it, they're not doing that. They're not going to do that well. They'll have a big spike, and then
I think with that too, Kate, I think it also depends on how are they creating the brand? Is a supplier going, hey, I have this tequila, let's go find a celebrity? Or is a celebrity going, hey, I'm going to find the right people to build this, like Mana, like The Rock did, as our man. Yeah. The Avion Tequila team basically went to him and said, let's create this brand, let's make it really good. They wanted to sell it for $50 or $49. And he's like, that's not the tequila of the people. We need this to be 29 and 31. And so even though the quality is there, but he's behind it. Obviously, he's popular. He's on Instagram. His tequila is very good, in my opinion. He owns his own distillery. He's just created, and he just keeps creating and building them as they grow. So I think it just depends on the level of commitment, to your point, Kate. Like, that's how you build a brand. You hire the right people.
Anything else. It's no different than Fawn Weaver, who was not a celebrity going into this, right? Like, you cannot build a brand from scratch right now unless you are willing to fully roll up your sleeve and work around the clock for it right now. It's too competitive of a space. And it's not enough to just have a celebrity name on it. It's not. But they will spice. Like Reserve Bar will tell you, I talked to Derek at Reserve Bar, tell you some of the best sales they've ever had are on these certain celebrity releases. But then some of those companies have gone out of business since then, right? Like they'll have these big wow moments, and then
Yeah, we always said we never, some of these celebrities that we've worked with. And I think that difference, Jesse, is, the difference is, are they an owner or are they contracted just as a celebrity? And you see the difference when they're an owner or they work, I mean, Curtis Jackson with Sire Spirits. I mean, that is his leader, right? Yeah. It like, and we, we joke around and be like, never seen a celebrity have to work so hard, So
he's a hard worker. He tried hard with FN too. He would go so hard on the military bases that he'd sleep through events at night.
Yeah. I mean, and with FN, that wasn't his own, right?
It wasn't his own.
That was partnered with,
it was told that.
Right. But now it's his baby, and he realizes, and I think a lot of these celebrities do that. Yeah, I mean, that'll give you that extra marketing push and whatnot. But ultimately, it's like every other brand. It's going to come down to that consumer loyalty, the brand story, the quality. I mean, when I think about when I got in the beverage business over 20 years ago, nobody knew the difference between, a Cabernet and a Sangiovese or bourbon and a Scotch, right? And now just the U.S. consumer is so knowledgeable, and they just keep learning, and so I think really being able to speak to the quality of your product and consumers believing in that makes the difference. Or
just fill out this credit app.
I don't have the authority to do that. Or and then dead in the water.
Dead in the water. So this is something that I've been talking with like MHW and our street about, is like there's a little broken piece here. So we're still fixing the chain, the daisy chain here, because we're not fully there yet. But that is the way that it's going to go, as smaller distributors will start popping up, because we need them. I think though that we do have to fix that piece to the puzzle. And I'm also seeing a lot of pass through for these new brands. Say, I just need your distributorship so I can pass through, so I can sell to my customer here, there, and everywhere. Which is lib dip,
right?
Right.
Or you don't go to a distributor right now with even having we as part of the Nearest Jack Advancement Initiative, we have a company we work with, and they were fully authorized in all Whole Foods in California. They're like, we just leave the distributor, and like we've got it, and it's like that's how they got their distributor so quickly, right? But it's like if you don't have one guarantee, it's very hard for someone to bring you on right now too. So there is a lot of work that's to be done. You can go to distributors now and just be like, okay, I have this contract, please take me on. That's all you have to do, which isn't really how we should be doing business, but that's where you're at.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's survival of the fittest, right? It's do you have the goals? Do you have the right people? And do you have the money behind to get to those goals? And I think you see a lot of people, a lot of startups struggle with that, because not everybody's The Rock and has money to put behind that type of growth. And I know Fawn was able to raise a good portion of money. Didn't I see in one of her interviews you spent $50 million or something on marketing, or I can't remember what the exact figure was.
Likely, yeah. I mean, it was $50 million to build out the distillery. I mean, she's talked to, I think she's raised over $230 million. So yeah, she's an incredible fundraiser, and not everybody or has that ability, right? And a commitment to not being, to not do that, or
yes, and to grow.
and expand. Yeah.
And just to go back to 2024 for a minute, I think that one of the other big things which created all of this is that people learned entrepreneurship and got attracted to entrepreneurship, like most of us on this call, actually. So, once the pandemic hit, people lost their jobs, or people realized they were working insane amount of hours, their jobs or whatever. They were like, let me take this as an opportunity to do my own thing. A lot of that was create my own brand. Oh, well, I've always wanted to do this, and I don't want to go work back at the office, or I don't want to go back to that job that I was unhappy with. Let me start my own thing. And so I think that's contributed to the oversaturation as well, because we just talked to a guy this morning, super lovely guy. He's from, I won't go into details, but he's from South America. He's currently living in another country, and he's from the hospitality industry, and he started going to Mexico and fell in love with tequila. This is like my standard story. And now he wants to create his own tequila, so he's working on it. And, I think a lot of people got their little entrepreneurial bug through the pandemic, and I think those bartenders, without a doubt. And then they're like, I can this or bottle this RTD. And, I think that contributed to a lot of it too, is like so many people, it was a pipe dream to be an entrepreneur, but then the pandemic almost forced it, right? Especially for people in hospitality. I mean, we all know how that went down. I was recruiting for restaurants through the pandemic for New York and New Jersey. It was insane. We couldn't find a sous chef to save our lives because they all left, So like, Kate, you left, right? And went into, you left prior to that.
Yeah.
But it's,
my friends in the hotel, they were all doing 7 jobs because so many people left. They were done. They didn't want to do more.
Right. So a lot of people became entrepreneurs, and a lot of people launched brands, and then they don't really understand the budgets, Jesse, that are needed to, we tell them, if you don't have 3 to 5 mil, even just to roll out, you're going to be in trouble. They're going for $100,000 round of funding, or like, they're not going to do the trick.
That's not enough. I mean, I do wish that some of these entrepreneurs would open small distributorships.
So again, it's something that I actually preach a lot. A lot of people I talk to, like friends in the industry, are kind of like, I want to do something. Do I want to create a digital platform? Do I want to be a consultant? And I'm telling them, go open a distributor.
Yeah.
They import a distributor. But we have to, there's evolution that needs to as well with that.
Yeah. I mean, I can speak from my own experience. My first job within this industry was working for a small distributor importer, Vinifera Imports. And I can tell you, like, it might be a great opportunity, but, and I remember the founder, I think he's still the owner, Dominic Nocerino, was like, it is harder to import and distribute wine and spirits than firearms.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, honestly, state by state, county by county, the laws that are required are insane. And then, being a salesperson working at when I first started, with Vinifera selling fine Italian wine in Miami at a time when nobody knew anything about Italian wine. I was one of those smaller distributors. And, a lot of people would be like, wait, they taste the wine, they love it, they want it. Oh, you're not with Southern R&DC Breakthrough. I don't remember what they were called at the time, but they can't work with you, and there are so many small distributors in Miami, in New York. We used to always say, like, people are like selling wine out of the back of their car.
They are.
And
they're delivering themselves because they can't get into a distributor and they want to sell their products. So
that we would have to write off because with 10-day net and,
COD and the different payment plans that are required by law in every state and every market, the smaller distributors wouldn't list them with the state. So, that's kind of how we would still be able to get the business because they can't legally buy, but we would still sell, right? And so it's just, I think they kind of that, we don't talk about the big elephant in the room, but, it is the 3-tier system, right? And I could tell you, I recognize the value of distributor. Obviously, that's my background and that's what I do. And, when you consider the safety of alcohol, the regulation of alcohol, being able to track where the product went, right, through the 3-tier system. And I hear of episodes in Mexico and I think recently in Laos where young people have died from drinking something that they think is a vodka or,
it's unregulated.
Free, and there's no way to track it, So I think it's really complex. I know that there are some big suppliers that are really pushing, and it's an ongoing thing, right, to disseminate the 3-tier system. But there has to be, you can't just like get rid of it and free for all, right? But it's a major challenge. And I think that's why my focus and what I try to do with my suppliers is you have to have a national strategy, right? A distribution strategy. And Kate, I love that you said that, coming in this industry, that was the big, we have to work through distributors, like, here's this, what? It's like, and I think a lot of our executives that come from CPG and stuff, they're like, what? Hold on, wait, what? There's a middle person that we're having to navigate through and also sell to and also market to. It is challenging, but it is possible, right? It's working through making sure that you've got that 5-year plan, you've got that annual strategy, and then the tactics that back up each of your strategies and how to go to market, right? And like you said, Jesse, it's not, you don't need to be in all 50 states, right? You don't need to roll it out. And I can tell you at Southern, that was like the national, that was the business model is you get a brand and you want it in all states, right? Like we don't want you unless you're in every state. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of that rethinking.
Yeah. So Kate, I have a question. So you're the kind of the newcomer, even though 8 years is still pretty solid and you're new to the industry. So can you kind of talk, so you saw what life was like before COVID and during COVID and then after COVID. So do you have any kind of reflections of stepping into a new industry that's not exactly easy? Probably any industry is the same, and we have, more firewalls with the TABC and whatnot. But is there any kind of big, like, I don't know, ahas or any kind of things that you want to talk about that, or, as you kind of learned the industry coming into it and then seeing how this evolved?
Yeah, so I came from the hospitality industry. So I worked in hotels and hotel management for 15 plus years and did some consulting. And, I led sales and marketing team there. Well, the sales there is very straightforward, right? And you sell and see your product, and you can see people literally putting your heads in beds, as we would say. I think for me, coming from a sales and marketing hospitality background was, wow, this is not as satisfying as you would want it to be because there's so many layers to the work you do. And people are like, oh, you sell. I'm like, yes, we go out and market and we sell, but we still have to get through several layers. So it's this business, it's a B2C and it's a B2B business. And I've seen the distributor relationship and the power of the distributor was something that really shocked me. I remember being super excited. We've gotten our first distributor contract. We're like, place their PO, and I was like, all right, we're in business. And nothing little to know. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, you gotta go do it. Right. And so what we realized in those first few years is, and it's not disrespectful because I think most people who worked on the distributor side would say they're really just delivering people for you until you really establish yourself. Now, it didn't always used to be, but now it is. It really became that way. So it was like, okay, here, I went out and did this. Can you just please deliver the bottle, please? We're really, and I think that was probably the most challenging thing. In our company, we also do a lot of support for other BIPOC and female-owned brands, and that's really the common thread. Is the path to distribution is very, very challenging, and it's getting more so because distributors in the past would maybe take on almost anybody. Now the big guys have actually left suppliers behind. They're starting to close their books. They are not taking on as many brands. They just can't. They know that they can't. They don't have the money to do it. The money is too big right now, and they really have to focus on keeping the big guys, which are the guys that are keeping their lights open. And that was hard learning to understand. But like, yes, we have this amazing story, and look at us, and everyone agreed, yes, amazing story. So and so is 80% of our business. And if we can't make them succeed and hit their goal, we can't afford to lose. So those were the tough learnings. And I don't think much of that has shifted post-COVID. Post-COVID, we saw everybody wanting to really be the helper. It was post-the murder of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement. And there was a lot of distributors coming out, and they want to bring on smaller brands. And so a lot of them connected with me, and I did a lot of connect with smaller brands. But I think in the last 3 years, the last 2 years, now this year, they're realizing they really don't have the bandwidth to help really develop these brands. They just don't have it. And we've seen some pretty significant distributor cuts this year across very, very large distributors. And so I think where we're at right now is it's going to be a very 2024 and going into 2025 new brands. It's going to be that way. And being able to maybe change your expectations, or really focusing on one or two key markets, or focusing on the markets where you live and where you have connections is really going to have to be the way to do it. Gone are the days when we rolled out 50 states in 2 years. I don't think they did it, but I don't think it's feasible unless you have just the deepest of pockets at this point. It would not be doable.
Yeah. I think, an interesting data point I have there is I was reading this article in Miningers International, and they had this quote that in 1995, at the beginning of the U.S. wine boom, there was about 1,800 U.S. wineries and 3,000 wholesalers. Today, there are 12,000 wineries and only 1,000 wholesaler, and that's only wineries. We're not even.
So yeah, it's actually worse. So
rights and all of that.
We talk about this all the time. So they're actually all in. There was about 10,000 distributors back in the day. And now there are about 3,000 and 3 times the amount of brands. So we're working at like a 9x, and it's not their fault. I worked at Southern too back in the day, and it used to be you could get into a distributor and boom, you have 212 salespeople hitting the ground running. But the oversaturation of the amount of products, it's not their fault. Again, I think you said it, they have to focus on who's really bringing in the money, and the large distributors, the product selling itself, and they just don't have the time, the bandwidth. My friends who are reps used to have 74 accounts, and now they have 186, and they just don't have the bandwidth to sell anymore. So not even making it to their key account every week or every other week right now, which is not with that workload. How could you possibly? And then when you're busy doing surveys for, I won't brand drop either, but like larger brands, you're for sure just going in and doing surveys. You're not presenting, you're not carrying a product in your bag anymore. I mean, I used to schlep a wine bag up and down the subway steps in Manhattan in the snow, and nobody's doing that anymore. like, I'm not nobody, Yeah. Oh my God. Every Friday I was doing tasting, staff trainings, all of the things. And it's so sad to see, but this is the evolution of the industry. And, there are, as you listed, so many reasons, and there are other reasons too that this is all happening. And it's more expensive for suppliers to do business then, right? Because we then have to supply people. 1,000%. You have to have your own feet on the street, or you're not going to get anywhere. And, we have this conversation multiple times a week with new brands, and really like, what's your strategy? What's your game plan? And like, how can we help you? We're not consultants, but also you have to be realistic, because we don't want to waste our time or our candidates' time, if your expectations are just not in line with the market. If you had a consultant there that told you, oh, just get into Distributor, get into Southern, and you'll be set. And then, okay, now you have to have a little
reality check here of what's really happening, you know?
Well, do you remember when it all began, like 20 years ago? When Diageo had, I think, the Boston Consulting Group, they do an analysis on how to like be more efficient. And that's when Diageo aligned with, I don't know if it was Southern or RNDC or whoever it was, but Southern and RNDC weren't really that big at the time, right? And so, but that's when the big contracts of the top 20 started. And that's when everything changed. And that's when you saw the mergers and acquisitions. And that's where all the small guys got eaten up, right? Or they're gone, like you said. So now you're left with these big companies that are trying to manage these big markets with fewer people, higher costs, and like you said, 3 or 4 times the brands. And so now I feel like I have an entrepreneur over here that's saying, I want to start a distributor. There's an opportunity here. I see Greenlight in Texas that's kind of, I don't know if it's existing or not. People are pulling their brands away. But that was a good example of like, yeah, you can do it. You can take these innovative brands and create a distributorship and be successful with it. But it still takes money, right?
Yeah, and there's challenges to that as well, unfortunately, because we've been talking a lot about this as well, because that's what I keep telling people is like, you want to do something, start a distributor. However, we're still having challenges with the buyer level of they don't want to fill out an application. They're that part. Or they're not, they can't, they're not allowed. Well, I'm a bar manager. I can't fill out your credit app. And so there's a broken piece to the puzzle that needs to be fixed, which is that these small distributors, especially particularly on premise, they don't have that full date. So they will help somebody hire somebody. They'll go in, they present the product. Here's my new tequila. I love it. Great. Send me a 6-pack. Oh, okay, great. Who are you distributed through? Oh, we don't work with them. That's not the strategy. You know, maybe like you said, Kate, focusing on, okay, I want to start my own brand. And I tell people all the time, if this is a better time than ever to start your own brand, but like really start small, like do those foundational brand building, like actually build the brand. Don't just try to distribute it, right? Get it out there and then it doesn't sell through, which is a big problem we have, you know? So
yeah, I've been talking to a lot of suppliers lately who tell me like they're not even like looking at the coasts right now, that where all of the growth is happening is really like Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, down in the Southeast, you know, like really all the other areas. And in some of those markets that you're seeing like 300%, 400% growth on sales, where both coasts have completely stagnated.
We tell them all the time that they all want to go into New York. Like, we're like, all right, where are you launching? New York. And they're like, oh, I worked in the New York market for many, many years. Let me remind you,
Terribly difficult market to be in.
Bottle by bottle market. And I tell them all the things, and then they're always like, yeah, we still want to be in New York. And I'm like, okay, I try. You know, but it's not a retail market though, but it's prestige market, right? It's like being in London or somewhere like, yeah, I want to be able to go to New York and see my bottle in every hotel lobby bar, right? And so it's to me for New York, it's for the on-premise, and that's not going to make you a lot of money. No. And Erica, we told them too, and they sometimes they tell us, and a lot of times we tell them, we're like, pick a secondary market and just do exactly what you said. Just dig in, blow it up, build your brand. And then you can roll out to other markets and say, hey, look what we've done here. We can do this here too. And you have like your proof of concept. But like trying to get your proof of concept in Cali, good luck. Well, yeah. This is an impossible market. California is just an impossible market right now. From also here on. It's also, I wouldn't suggest anyone launch here. The market is negative, and I haven't done enough research digging into it. But I think you think about, I know how many people I know that left Los Angeles or left California during the pandemic, and now they're in secondary market. So I do think if we like really all dug into it, there. New York, a lot of people left New York. A lot of people left California. It was expensive. They were like, we want to be places with like open, you know, with hills and doors and all the things.
Sidewalks taller than 6 feet.
All the trees. Yeah, all the trees. And I mean, so I think there's some, you attribute some of that to that. And I mean, yeah, the California market is, actually the whole coast is struggling. I hear that biggest complaint, every single company we talk to, their biggest pain point is California. I don't know what's going on over there. Yeah, I know they're doing the right thing. So all they're doing is just dropping prices. Like I already said it, and it's just that's not.
It's because they're all moving to Texas.
They agree. Texas and Florida.
It's
in Tennessee. Like when I go back to Tennessee, because that's where our distillery is. Like, where are you from? Los Angeles. Don't worry, I didn't move here. I still live there. Yeah. There's just so many transplants everywhere now.
We have a great small vodka that's pretty startup-y, and they want us to hire people from in Atlanta and DC, and we're like, smart. Yes, that's what. But one of the founders is from one of the large companies, so he's actually from the industry, so he gets it. But we're like, good for you. Good for you for picking it.
We can sidebar, but I'm fairly certain 99% sure I know who you're talking about. You probably do. We talk to them quite frequently.
Great, you probably do, and it's great because they're just like, you're doing it the right way. You're doing it right.
Very smart about what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's
they don't have roots there.
Yeah, exactly. To your point, Caitlyn, it's like, how many people are starting brands that actually have experience in the industry? And because we all know how hard it is, I would like, Erica, in your research, is there any data points for that, for us to have any kind of understanding? Because it has to be very low percentage of people. Yeah, from my experience.
I'd love to hear statistics.
Tell me. I haven't seen any data points on that at all, but just anecdotally, I would say that, I get outreach just because of the podcast and some of the advising I do. I get outreach daily from brands, and the vast majority of brands looking for advisory obviously are brands that people are not already veterans of the industry. So I do see just so many people from a super wide variety of industries really coming on. And I think that probably a lot of it has to do with the success of some of the celebrity brands that really just shone a light on like, hey, this is like, you could make a lot of money in this sector. But when it comes down to it and you really realize how much funding has to go into actually making a product hit the market and be able to sell, is just, it's a huge amount of money. And I think, whoever said like 3 to 5 million, I think that is at the minimum accurate, at minimum number. And, companies, again, like that whole idea of companies looking for $100,000. Like I do see a lot of that. And it's like, this is just not going to be enough funding to get to escape velocity for this brand to be able to succeed. I mean, it just isn't. There's so many barriers that people external to the industry just don't really realize. And even those within the industry, I think there's a lot of wishful thinking that's going into brands, and like, because we're insiders, we can do it for less, but that doesn't always translate to the realities of the marketplace.
They could talk about that for hours, but I will say I see some very smart people who don't know the industry, but know how to lean into the right people to help them build it with realistic expectations, but more so the other side that they just, we get the comment, well, the person that we hire needs, the sales that they generate need to pay for their salary. And we're like, no, it doesn't work that way. Not in the first 3 years of the business. No. Like, it's just not realistic. You have to invest. You have to spend money to make money in this industry. It's just, I'm sorry. I don't want to bust your bubble, but I also don't want to see you throw money out the window because your 100% expectations aren't realistic. What I've also seen is, it costs a lot of money to grow, right? And if, God forbid, your brand takes off, big retailers, big chains, they want continuity. They don't want to just buy it and then you be out of stock. And what I would notice with some of these brands, is if they don't have the funding and they're like, well, if you get us the placement and you buy the product,
then we'll be able to get more money. And I'm like, oh, it doesn't work like that. You've got to have the funding in order for us, for the distributor to take a bigger, the investment in your brand to then pitch it to these big chains. So I think it's just, when we get that business, we'll be able to raise more money, and it just doesn't work that way. I think that, with this startup world being so, with all these other startups outside of the wine and spirits industry being so lucrative and raising all this money for like just the concept of an idea and not even and they're getting all this funding. I think that wine and spirit suppliers need to step up their game in raising money, right? And Kate, you mentioned that about Fawn, like that was her background, right? So I think it's like really important to always, how to raise capital and treat your wine and spirit brand like a startup, and not just everybody thinks their product is great and it's just going to take off because it's good. No, and the guy we talked to this morning that I mentioned before, like he's super nice, and at least he's from hospitality. And we asked him what his budgets were and what he was doing for funding, and he had the right answers. And we're like, okay, we're actually excited to work with you because we think your head frame is in the right space. And like, yes, now we want to help your brand be successful and do what we can for you, but you have your game plan and it's realistic, which is so nice to hear. We told him that, like, it's a breath of fresh air to hear realistic numbers, realistic, he's going for funding and he's got some good avenues for his funding. And we're like, great, you're smart. You're doing it right. Yeah. Keep going and call us when you're ready. Yeah. And I think the funding question is really interesting because, that was one of my best takeaways, I think, from the conversation with Fawn, was that she raised, over 200 million, but it was all from private investors as opposed to venture capital or private equity, where, her point was like, look, if I raised from funds, I would have like the 3-year grace period before they now are majority owners of this business essentially, and before they sort of push me out. And so I think that concept, like, I don't think that anyone in the wine or spirits industry has been as successful as Fawn was, just to advertise for Alchemist like it needs it. But I think that honestly, Fawn was a groundbreaking founder in that way, that she found a new way to raise money that no one else has been as successful with. But that template of being able to raise from private investors while still maintaining more than 51% of your company, I think that is going to be a new template that we start to see more brands move towards. And that is actually like the smart way to do it. To venture. Yeah. The other thing is really these people who are creating brands is just thinking about the story and the authenticity of what you're doing is a big deal, because, Fawn, the reason she's so successful is because she's made that's her life mission. This is everything. This is to venture what she does, it's all she does. And her ultimate goal is about lifting up the legacy of somebody. And I think that you have to be able to share that dream with people, and people really able to look in your eyes and see who you are and what you're going to do. She is like a unicorn in that regard. Surely. Yeah, she's really amazing. I have learned a lot just watching all her interviews throughout all the different media, and she really is a special human, honestly, and an amazing woman, but just a human being, the way she is and the way she wants to tell the story, and how she saw the picture to building a distillery and being, so successful is really, it's one of a kind. Truly. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love her. I was like 25 years old and to work together in hotels, which is how we met. She's bad who she is herself. To venture, when the rest of us were like, it's 6 o'clock, we're gonna go drink cocktails and smoke cigarettes and like be naughty after work, like she was focused. Like, but she was always doing something else. She was entrepreneurial always. Because she talked about starting her own, was it a PR firm or marketing company at 19? Yeah. So while she came into hospitality really to kind of learn it, like
the rest of us, that's all we did. But she was, still, I remember she was taking classes, or she was, also writing her book. And she always had other things going, to
Yeah.
Super awesome.
Produced by Fedora J Productions. Tune in next Thursday and have a great week.